Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Cal-Sag Trail update, and we're very fortunate to have a lot of great people here in the room that have been involved in the project that are going to give you some exciting information and show us a little bit of a presentation and some video on the progress of the Trail Blue Island, and then talk about, from what I understand, connecting the rest of the 26-mile trail. So we're very excited. Thank you for being here. I want to kind of mention a few Blue Island officials that are in the room tonight. First, I want to thank Mayor Vargas for being here. He's in the back of the room. Domingo Vargas is here. Thank you. Of all things related to the trail, it's a super exciting project, obviously, for Blue Island for a ton of reasons. So thank you. And then Mark Miller is here from the city. Mark Riverdale. There you are. I know you're going to. He assumed this project. I know probably a lot of you know about Jason Berry, and he worked on the project extensively. And he loves his for Lamont. We were fortunate enough to have Mark come in and step into the project and really make sure that things kept moving so that we could have this important piece that was just completed in Blue Island and beyond. So thank you so much, Mark. I'm going to turn this over to the real professionals in the room and let them take it from here. So first up, we have the General Superintendent from the Forest Preserves of Cook County, and Ms. Arnold Randall. So welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
All right, good evening. It's a pleasure to be with you, and it's a pleasure to talk about the Cal-Sag Trail. It's just a real success story that's happening right here in the south suburbs. So Chris Flattery, who's our Director of Planning and Development.
Hello. Hi. Good to see you all.
She's going to set us up with the audio-visual. So I'm going to give you a presentation on a couple of different. So what you're seeing here, what you saw this loop, this is, I think this is Chris actually riding the trail and showing you some videos.
I don't have a GoPro, so are you proud of me for riding my bike with one hand?
Oh, wow.
This is the 1 mile stretch of trail, in case you haven't ridden it. So right by the senior suites. You can see you're right by the water. And so this is the senior suites that you see off of Ashland. The trail actually, at the east end, I'm pretty sure Brian Bender's probably responsible for the little yard sign that says this ain't over, but more about the east, the west extension under Ashland. But you can see that when we get to the river here, it's a pretty scenic view. So I don't know, how many of you have actually ridden it? Oh wow, a lot of you. So this is MWRD land, and MWRD, like a lot of the Cal-Sag Trail, is owned by the Water Reclamation District and leased to the different municipalities that actually construct the trail on it. So this is a lease that Blue Island holds until you get up to the bridge, which is coming up soon. So this was stated just a week ago, and once you cross the water, you are then on the Forest Preserve side of the channel. And this is just maybe half a mile coming up to the water. So
are you traveling west?
So I'm traveling east, going east from Ashland. So I apologize, I didn't have a soundtrack for this. I'm pushing my AD skills just doing this. So a lot of the Cal-Sag Trail, for those of you who've ridden it, see the familiar wave climbing and markings, and so you see the familiar Cal-Sag monument. Still missing some information on one side, but having that wayfinding and branding along the trail, I think gives people a lot of comfort that they're on the Cal-Sag Trail. So this is the brand new bridge, 10-ton 410 steel bridge, and with just really spectacular views of both the marina at Base Point on one side and the Cal-Sag, the Little Cal River, where you can usually spot an egret or a great blue heron.
Yeah. Oh, the old eagle there.
Yep.
Yeah, we did.
So coming down off the bridge on the Forest Preserve side and Joe Louis Golf Course on the right, and of course the water's on the left. And some rolling topography and but still ADA compliant, right?
Yep.
Trying to catch a glimpse of some golfers there. You can actually see them going through the trees. So there is and you can see the water through the trees. So I mean, you're pretty close to the little Cal River. Very big, some very mature trees right near the trail. And so this is just coming up on Joe Louis Golf Course. There was a restaurant and marina up on the left that is now abandoned, and we have hope that that could be acquired in the future, but it's hung up in foreclosure, default, limbo, in boat storage buildings as well. So just a little further here, and you're right at the Joe Louis parking lot and Halsted Street. And then I didn't keep filming all. I did, but I'm gonna stop here and let you. So the Joe Louis parking lot's coming up, and once you're at Halsted Street, the trail still continues down Halsted Street to the corner at 134th Street. And you can see that. Is anyone here from the village of Riverdale? So we have Riverdale, the village of Riverdale, to thank for a spur that goes into Whistler Woods parking lot. You'll see the maps in a minute. The Joe Louis parking lot was expanded as part of this project, which they sorely needed some additional parking. Halsted Street's just up ahead, and Whistler Woods is on the other side of Halsted Street. For those of you who aren't familiar with Whistler Woods, there's a really scenic start to the Major Taylor Trail at the north end of the Whistler Woods parking lot, which you'll see in just a minute, a slide of the mural. But there's another bridge that just got an art improvement on the other side. So I'm going to stop here. Okay.
All right, thank you, Chris. And so while Chris is switching over to the PowerPoint, I wanted to give you, what I want to talk about tonight is obviously the Cal-Sag Trail, but give you a little bit of background on the Forest Preserves of Cook County. I'm going to guess a lot of you are very familiar with us, but not everybody. So it's a chance for us to talk a little bit about what we've been doing and sort of the bigger picture for the Forest Preserves. Forest Preserves of Cook County are one of the oldest forest preserve systems of its kind in the country, and it's the largest forest preserve system of its kind in the country. We are, there are 102 counties in the state of Illinois. We're the most ecologically diverse, which you would think we're not because it encompasses the city of Chicago, but a lot of different elements come together here in Cook County, and so it's ecologically speaking, very interesting, very diverse, and we're very fortunate to have it and sort of protected the way we have over the last 103 years. So we're 103 years old as an organization.
Oh, no. I do.
All right, let me try. All right, so we'll stay on that one for a minute. We're at 70,000 acres, so really big, almost 70,000 acres of land, really big. 11% of the county footprint is made up of forest preserves in Cook County, which is pretty amazing. And to give you perspective, if you put all the parks together in the city of Chicago, it's about 9,500 acres, and so we're at 70,000 acres. We have these huge swaths of land, a lot here in the Southlands, but all over the county. So, very little in the city, but most of it is actually in the suburbs. And so we divided it by zones because we know it's sort of overwhelming. Otherwise, we try to figure out where you are in that. And really, our job is really the mission really of the Forest Preserves. You can go to the next slide, Chris. is to really connect, number one, to maintain these lands in a natural state, so we're not parks. We're different than parks. We have some park-like spaces, so if you go to the picnic groves, and we have some water, we have some pools and things like that that are park-like, but the vast majority of our holdings are natural. They're meant to be natural and maintained in a natural state with healthy ecology that allows a lot of the different animals and plants to thrive, that if we didn't do it, they would be gone. They wouldn't be in this area because we built everything else. So the Forest Preserve mission is really to protect that. The other parts of the mission is to make sure that the public is educated about that and that the public has the opportunity to recreate and enjoy that nature as well, so benefit from it. And one of the biggest ways, or the biggest way, frankly, is our trail system. We have over 300 miles of trail here in Cook County, and that's about half of that's paved. The other half is what you see here, either dirt or stone trails. And those are just the ones that we actually count and mark. There's a lot of trails that people have made over the years that we don't have mapped out, but there's a real opportunity here. Most residents don't realize, I think here you're relatively close to the Forest Preserve. Most residents don't realize how close the Forest Preserve system is to them. You're really no more than 20 or 30-minute car ride away from a preserve, no matter where you are in Cook County. In a lot of cases, you're closer. One of the things that we introduced a few years ago in 2015 was camping, or reintroduced. So when President Preckwinkle came on board, and she brought me on board in December of 2010, we really were thinking about ways to connect to a larger public, and camping was right at the top of our list. We realized that the only people that camped in the forest preserves at that time were the scouts, which are great. They're still our biggest user. But they really wasn't open to the general public. So we went on a process. Chris was very much a part of that. Dave Kirch, our chief landscape architect back there, to plan for and build new campgrounds. And so we have 5 campgrounds, new or renovated campgrounds that we started in 2015 opening to the public. And since then, we've had over almost 140,000 visits to our campgrounds in those 5 campgrounds. So it's really exciting, very popular. I was just out at one this past Saturday, and really the ones that are here closest in the Southlands are Camp Bullfrog, which is in the Palos area, Camp Sullivan, which is in Oak Forest, I was just there, and Camp Chabon, which is in Calumet City.
And we have brochures on the
Yeah,
table
a
over there,
lot
lots
of
of information for you to take home.
And so those campgrounds are, they're cabins, they're tent sites, they're RV sites as well, and all of them get used extensively, very popular. The nature centers have been part of a staple of the forest preserves for 90 years, and the most well-known is Little Red Schoolhouse, which is out in the Palos area, but Sand Ridge Nature Center, again, is right next to Camp Chabon in the Calumet City area. These are great places to start to connect if you're not sure, if you've never been to the forest preserves and you want to understand what we're about. We have their staff locations, we have animals there that exist here in the forest preserves we care for. There are educational opportunities there. A lot of programming goes on there, a lot of special events. Really wonderful places to bring family or just to walk around, and we have staff that lead hikes and all sorts of fun things year-round. Paddling. So, this is a very big activity. There's a lot, talked about the Cal-Sag Trail. Obviously, it's cutting across the river there. I actually paddled underneath the new bridge with my family earlier in the summer, and so it was a great, saw some egrets, as Chris mentioned, or somebody mentioned. I didn't see the eagle though, but I saw a lot of birds out there. And this is just a great place. So there's launches, all around us here. But you can, if you don't have your own canoe or kayak, you can rent at Maple Lake or Sagandaski Slough. There are both opportunities there to rent kayaks or canoes or even rowboats if you want to do some fishing. Nature play is a big push for us. Again, at both of those campgrounds and also at Dan Ryan in the Woods, this is sort of, nature play is using natural elements instead of the traditional playgrounds, which are awesome. I have younger kids, but these are really awesome too. They get to build things, they get to climb on things that maybe we got to do that a lot of generations maybe have not experienced. And so they do a lot of building, they do a lot of fun things with these elements, a lot of climbing. And so we really have encouraged, this is a national movement, nature play, and sort of getting back into nature and using natural elements to play and be creative in your play. And so we think that's really important. That's a part of our mission. A lot of programs and events, so you'll see, as Chris mentioned, I think I brought one of the brochures up here. We do seasonal brochures. I did not bring it up here. We have our fall brochures out right now, so Chris can pull it up and show you, grab one. So it just tells you all the things that are going on through the fall season, and we'll have the winter and summer and spring brochures as well. But it tells you what's going on. You can look at it by zone. If you want to go to a whole different part of the county, because it's like going to a different world sometimes, it's fun too. All the special events. We have a party for the preserves, actually, events that are going on right now, so there's a lot of fun things going on. I would say a lot of birding activities, a lot of canoe kayaking, environmental, kind of canyon tours, all sorts of fun things that happen in the forest preserves, and for all sorts of folks. So one of the big things that we're responsible for these types of animals is just a sampling of some of the animals that exist here in the forest preserves. Bald eagles, up until, I'd say, 4 or 5 years ago, were not nesting in Cook County, and they are now. We have at least 4 or 5 locations where they are nesting, and that's a reflection on, I think, the better practices that we've had with respect to, not using certain types of chemicals, and frankly, that the farming community has had. We're not using certain types of things that would damage the soil, which goes into the water system, which feeds the fish, and so the fish had all these chemicals in their systems, and then the eagles eat the fish. They were not able to nest successfully because their eggs couldn't survive. And so it's all sort of connected in this ecosystem, and if we do the right things, eagles can do better. The Blanding's turtle is very important, night heron, and a very popular river otter got a lot of press last year. Actually, he's a very popular guy. When we actually track them, when we use tracking collars to understand the movement patterns, and it really helps us with the science of it. And we have a whole wildlife ecology, a wildlife biology team that really does a lot of work with animals. Particularly in how they do and how they survive here in Cook County, but also issues around diseases that go from animals to people, which are called zoonotic diseases. We do a lot of support work there with a lot of different agencies. We also recognize that in connecting a larger public with the forest preserves is sort of just healthy lifestyle and feeling better and getting out in nature. And so we've really been working hard to connect with residents around the health issues. So you don't necessarily have to go to health club. You can actually just spend some time out in nature. You can volunteer. These are 2 of our long-term volunteers. They've been volunteering, I'd say, for 35 to 40 years in the preserves, and they lead work days, and so any day of the week or on weekends, you can certainly find them out there. But these are healthy lifestyles and getting out in the nature, reducing stress. We've even worked with Northwestern University to actually study the health effects, because I think we all kind of know you feel better when you get out there, but there was actual data that we work with professors from Northwestern to analyze that and show that it's real, that you do feel better, you feel healthier by taking a walk in nature, spending time in nature. You're going to feel better overall, and it's good for your health overall. You may or may not know that both the Brookfield Zoo and the Chicago Botanic Garden are part of the Forest Preserve system. They both sit on Forest Preserve land. They both have long-term relationships. The zoo is coming up on 100 years. The garden, since 1970, 71, has been part of the Forest Preserve system. We fund them operationally. We fund part of their operating budget. They fundraise a lot of private money many times over with the money that we give them, but they're great public-private partnerships and part of what's the Forest Preserve system. Okay, so to give you some numbers. In talking about the economic impact to Cook County. So why is it valuable to have forest preserves? It's obvious. It's great because you got all this great nature and healthy stuff, but it also has an economic impact of $1.5 billion over the last 13 years, and I'll talk about what some of those are. $215 million worth of annual value to residents from activities in the forest preserves and facilities, a lot of different activities. There are 1,600 annual jobs. So we don't have I wish I had 1,600 employees. We have about 550 full-time positions, but we hire a lot of contractors. A lot of people do work related to supporting what's happening in the forest preserves, so it's generating jobs. Also, we hire a lot of young people seasonally through our conservation corps and teach them about conservation, and they do work on our land. And so we're investing in a lot of people, both our own staff, but also young people as well. We talk about just sort of the services that you get for having forest preserves. Clean water. So there's some obvious things. We keep pushing this slide because I think some other stuff's going to come up. Clean water is the obvious one. So, having clean water. Clean air. Thing we all were taught growing up. Having trees, help, obviously clean the air. That's very true, and that's, we're the biggest clean air provider in the region for sure. Education and job training. So I mentioned earlier with the Conservation Corps. Lowered health risks, protection of plants and animals, which is core to our mission. Really, there's a lot of things that would not exist. There's about 113, I think, endangered species of plants and animals that exist in the forest preserves of Cook County, and a lot of them, if there were no forest preserves, would not exist. They'd be wiped out. So at least in this part of the country. And then flood prevention. So flooding is obviously the top of mind for a lot of people. You see what's happening in North Carolina. We have serious flooding problems here in Cook County, but they would be much worse if there were no forest preserves. We absorb a lot of that rainwater. Just to give you some sense of, how we're funded. This is if you lived in the city, but this is pretty typical for a lot of suburbs too. About 1% of your total property tax bill goes to the forest preserve, so pretty small amount. And obviously for most districts, it's the schools, which is true for Chicago as well. MWRD, the larger Cook County, your local municipality or whatever. I don't know the percentages for Blue Island, but there's similar types of numbers, and so that amount that goes to the forest preserve goes to support all those 70,000 acres plus the Brochures and Chicago Botanic Garden. And so, we think we're doing a good job, but we've actually had some validation of that. We've gotten a lot of recognition over the last 8 years from, Parks and Recs organizations, National Association of Counties, outdoor professionals, the Civic Federation. So we feel like we've been working hard to get it on track. It has not always been on track, just to be frank. County government's had its challenges historically, but we feel like it's better maintained, and we work really hard to do that, and we want to continue on that path. That's the overview of the forest preserves. I will now, I think we're going to skip and go over to.
So now we're gonna.
Go over to talk more specifically about the Cal-Sag Trail update, and then I'm gonna start that, and I think some other folks are gonna talk about it as well. So you saw the video that Chris went out and filmed. That's above and beyond, Chris, for went out on the trail.
Right.
I really hope you have no way on doing it in one hand. So this is Cal-Sag Trail. So and it really it's the newest mile. The Cal-Sag Trail crossing at the Little Calumet River at Phase Points. You saw that. You saw the boats in the harbor there, just east of Ashland Avenue. And so there's this really spectacular ride, very beautiful. It connects to the Major Taylor Trail, which Chris referenced. I'm going to show you some pictures of that too, which starts in Dan Ryan Woods in the Beverly community on the southwest side of Chicago and comes out to Whistler Woods, which is out here along the trail. So we got 13 miles of trails, which open from Route 83 in Lamont, so all the way on the west end of the left side of the picture there, in Cicero.
Yeah, so this is Cicero.
There's Cicero there, right? I'm sorry, yeah. There you go. When complete, the Cal-Sag Trail will be 26 miles long. That's equivalent to the Chicago Lakefront Trail. Let's give you some sense of how significant that is. From Archer near Lamont to the Burnham Greenway, which is near the Indiana border. So that's pretty cool when you think about that. So that trail connection, taking you this east-west, west-east path through the south suburbs here. I think that's very impressive and frankly, just great recreational opportunity for people to ride and walk and just recreate in nature. I just want to mention the coalition partners. So it's us, obviously, the Forest Preserve, Village of Palos Park, Alsip Park District, Trinity College, City of Palos Heights, City of Blue Island, thank you. Village of Riverdale, Village of Dalton Park District, City of Campgrounds City, Village of Burnham, and then the MWRD, as Chris mentioned earlier, owns about half of the land. And so they didn't have to do that. It's sort of a reflection on the leadership there and the direction that they've been moving, where they've really opened this land up for recreational opportunities. It's not their core mission, but they understand there's value in partnering that way. And so it's good that they did. This trail itself has gotten a lot of awards through its planning and implementation. So the 2015 Illinois Association of Park Districts Best of the Best Award is the statewide award that this trail got recognition for. 2016 Friends of the Chicago Green River Award, and then the 2017 Metropolitan Planning Council Burnham Award to the Friends of the Cal-Sag Trail and the Cal-Sag Coalition. So this is just a great partnership and collaboration amongst a lot of people, and it doesn't always happen that way. It's hard to get a lot of different people together, moving in the same direction. But this is something everybody who's been involved should be really proud of. This couldn't have been done without federal money, federal transportation dollars. It's pretty significant. About 80% of the total construction for this, or about $2.5 million, was provided through the Transportation Alternative Program, or TAP. So federal dollars can be applied to transportation projects, and it's not always highways. It's trails like this, and so this is great. We certainly take advantage of this in the Forest Preserve for other projects as well. Let's get to the next slide, Chris. just some pictures of the trail along the trail, you know, Phase Point, bridge, and it's really, you know. Whenever I talk about our trails to people who don't know, or they know the city trails or the you know, the 606, which is, you know, just a whole different type of trail, that this is a different type of trail experience, and very rewarding and very relaxing, and just sort of, you know, you get to really hear things and spend some time out there, and it's not, you're not dodging other bikes or, you know, skaters and all that sort of thing, so it's actually pretty cool. The 20% local match for fabrication of signage. The Friends of the Cal-Sag Trail were very involved in helping to raise that kind of money as well. The new construction includes a 1.3 miles of trail between Ashland and Halsted, which is now complete. And it includes the bridge, which we saw a lot of pictures of. Yeah, there you go. The bridge right there, very cool bridge. The Village of Riverdale project has two parts. Part one is very close to completion, which is
Well, it's this on-street portion.
on-street portion.
And then spur into Whistler Woods, right?
Yep. Into Whistler Woods, which connects with the Major Taylor Trail, which is running north-south or kind of southwest, northeast.
That's right, so the Major Taylor Trail,
Yeah.
the north end of Whistler Woods parking lot here.
Yeah. Right, so Whistler across there.
Right, so
With the Major Taylor Trail, which is across Halsted and going
The Riverdale Part 2 will be starting in the near future and includes modifications to the existing Halsted Avenue Bridge over the railroad. Once complete, hopefully in the summer of next year, you'll be able to travel through Riverdale to Indiana Avenue. The Major Taylor Trail history created along an old rail line in the late 1990s. So the Major Taylor Trail, yeah, I was actually involved with that when I worked for the city of the parks back in the late 90s and early 2000s. Takes you from the city. It's one of the few places where you can get from a city park or city open space or in the city forest preserve out into the suburbs. And so it's exciting. You have the same type of on the northwest side, the same type of experience on the northwest side, but this is the one on the southwest side that takes you out to the preserve and then connects you with the Cal-Sag Trail, and then takes you to a whole other, you know, experience going east-west on this newly built Cal-Sag Trail. So it's pretty exciting, and part of what we spend a lot of our time on in the planning department is trail connections, and sort of, you know, continuing to link trails and create opportunities to ride throughout the system, you know, without stopping or without having, you know, not running into dead ends or whatever. And so I think Chris said maybe is it 15% of our total trail system we've built in the last 5 years. Does that sound right?
Dave?
Is that somewhere around that?
It's a pretty significant amount
Yes.
based on its federal
Yeah.
funds.
It's a big number.
Where is that sign?
This sign for the Major Taylor Trail is right near the spur here in the Whistler Woods parking lot.
So, you see bikes. Yes.
This is the Whistler Woods spur that Riverdale just built, and there's the sign.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've expanded our bike share program this year. We've been working with Bike and Roll Chicago, and they were our vendor last year, but with new technology, so dockless biking is the new technology. You don't have to have the big metal dock, and that was a big expense for bike share. You see that in downtown Chicago or different parts of Chicago. Those are $30,000 a piece, those docks. And so without having to pay for the dock, now you can put a lot more bikes. They have GPS and they have wheel locks, and I actually used it for the first time last week, so you know, not too difficult to use. And you can, if you don't have a bike, you're just coming out and you can bring your bike, you can rent the bike for an hour or longer, and it's pretty reasonable cost associated with that as well. So good opportunity there. Yeah, all you need is a smartphone. This is the mural, the Major Taylor mural, which opened just over a month ago or so. Was completed earlier in the summer, and this has got to be the longest mural anywhere in the region. It's unbelievable. It's the whole extent of that existing bridge, and so when something that was obviously graffitied in the past and just an ugly space has been brightened up, has some very interesting history, and really there's a whole group of riders, Major Taylor Club that are very active in this process, and a lot of community process around this. I would say the biking community has been very impressive to me, that they're really committed and work together and very collaborative, and really want to see these connections happen, and it's a great way to bring people of all different backgrounds together. It's been very impressive. And so this is the mural, the Major Taylor Trail, as it crosses from the city over to Whistler Woods.
And we have, I should have included the picture of it from the boat, but a lot of people are taking pictures of it from their boats, which
Yeah.
So I think we're going to turn it now over to the consultants who are going to tell you about the update on the remaining trail segments, what's coming next, which is what you all really want to know. I don't know, Brian Krosnick or Dave Landwehr. Brian, you want to come up?
We'll both.
Both come up? Okay, so these are Brian.
Thank you.
All right, I would never have gotten that. I was close. From AECom, and then Dave Landwehr from Tomera Engineering. So I think this is maybe your
Yeah, we use that.
your only slide.
Yep.
So and there are handouts of this if you didn't pick one up that are easier to read. So great.
Thank you. So as Chris said, I'm Brian Chisnick. I work with AECom, a consulting engineering firm in Chicago. We're currently doing the phase 2 design plans for the remaining segments of the Cal-Sag Trail. We have 4 left. There's the Allsett Park District Trail, which is the first kind of yellow dotted segment around mile marker 13. Blue Island West, which will connect Allsett into the recently completed section Blue Island East that we're talking about today. The Halstead Street Bridge, and then the Milton Park District section furthest to the east. As of right now, we have addendums in with each of those sections for alignment revisions from the phase 1 plan. So those have been with IDOT for about a year, and those should be, the approvals on those addendums should be forthcoming soon. In the meantime, we've been developing the final plans for each of those segments, and hope to get those out for either a spring or a fall construction schedule next year, hopefully spring, obviously. That's our plan right now. So we're hoping to have everything substantially complete by 2020 to connect both sides of the trail.
There is, I'm Dave Landwehr, the Tomera engineer. Actually, I was involved in the project from the very beginning when I worked with URS, who was bought off by AECom, but then I moved over to Tomera. But I'm still involved with the project quite a bit. So there is one other contract that was actually not, it's been kind of been broken out of the Allsett Park District segment. And that's because the Cook County Highway Department and the Village of Allsett are reconstructing 131st Street between Kedzie and Pulaski. So rather than having bike path constructed and then torn up a year or so later, the roadway project is going to incorporate that bike trail between Kedzie and Pulaski. So there's that final segment is probably going to be the last one to be constructed. And I don't have the exact timetable from Cook County to the village, but I think they're a good 2 years out from completing the roadway project in that area. But the other segment that was mentioned is the Village of Riverdale. We were the construction manager for the Riverdale segment. It's substantially complete. The only real work remaining on that is pavement marking and then the improvement of the pedestrian signals at 134th Street and Halstead. So it'll be pedestrian push buttons, pedestrian signal heads that'll be in operation, hopefully in the not too distant future, and then that will pretty much wrap up that Riverdale project. Are there any questions on any of the upcoming projects? Sure.
Pulaski Avenue,
Yes.
moving from the east side of Pulaski to the west side of Pulaski, how's that going?
It's going. We have the alignment. We've been talking with Cook County, and that was one of the big reasons is working with the Department of Highways there. They wanted to move it to the west side to consolidate with that 131st Street project that Dave mentioned, so that there would be a signalized crossing rather than cross at 129th, which is just right around that railroad crossing there. So they had that signalized crossing on 131st. They moved it to the west side of the street, and we've been working with the county and ComEd to do all the utility relocations and everything, and have that lined up for the Allsett project.
Nothing resolved yet.
It's not official, but it's on its way, and it looks, everything looks good. There's nothing really adverse for that section.
Did you get the easement from the company there on that west side of Pulaski? Didn't you have to take some of that property?
We're utilizing the existing utility easement that's there,
Oh, okay.
and that's more for the grading aspect than the actual trail. The trail itself will be within the roadways right away, but the way that Pulaski works, it's a little bit different, where the building elevation and the grades outside the roadway are lower than the actual road. So trying to facilitate the drainage for that was the difficult part. But we're utilizing that utility easement for the gradients to collect the water.
How exactly is the trail going over the bridge in Halsted and Riverdale?
So that project, they're going to be narrowing the median, the existing median, on the bridge itself, and they're going to be shifting the lanes over a little bit further to the east on the existing bridge. So that's going to free up space on the west side of the bridge. That's going to allow for the installation of a concrete barrier between the path, which will be on the existing bridge, and the roadway traffic lanes. So it'll be a nice barrier with a railing on top of that that's going to separate the users on the trail on that existing bridge from the traffic.
Sounds good. I'll get another question.
Oh, okay.
When are you going to complete the trail from Chapman Bridge to Ashland?
That's part of the Blue Island West segment that he described, that we're waiting on IDOT for final
Because
approval.
right now, there's no official way to get on the Cal-Sag Trail from the west.
Sure. And that's something that we're definitely working for, and we are, we have the plans basically ready to go out as soon as IDOT gives us okay on these addendum approvals. That Blue Island West segment, everything's basically ready to go.
Okay, going back east, okay, I'm from the Riverdale, but further east by Golden Gates, our hill. We took a ride to the Major Taylor Trail. We have no access, no safe access. We were taking our chances of riding there. We were in the streets, on bumpy sidewalk, we have no access.
Yeah,
No safe way to take a ride.
I think that's the segment that's going to continue to the east towards the village of Burnham.
Yeah.
And again, that's also pending IDOT's final approval. So
It's
that will,
pending.
right, it should be under construction next year.
That's the plan.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm just curious about community input meetings for design and trail. I haven't heard of any of them.
Oh. There have been many, many, many. So
Okay,
this
I'm a former employee of Chicagoland Bicycle Federation Transit, and I've only been in Blue Island for a little over a year. But in terms of the actual nuts and bolts about bike trail versus bike lanes, separated grade, those sorts of things. And I understand there's a lot of fluidity still with it because the final design hasn't been done. So I'm a little concerned about what those designs look like before they get approved and implemented.
So when the project began, 10 years
12
ago?
years, 12 years ago?
2005.
Yeah.
So there were public meetings that were held in every town along the whole corridor. And they were fairly early in the design process to get some feedback and to kind of show the different plans and different alternative alignments that were available then. And it was based on a lot of that public feedback that we got from them, from that time. That's when the alignment was pretty much decided upon. What we're looking at now with these revisions, they're basically slight, moving from the east side of Pulaski over to the west side of Pulaski. Those are the kind of revisions that we're really looking at right now, that AECOM is taking care of. So, but the public meeting process was very extensive.
Well, but I was at one of those early meetings, but my understanding was that a lot of the final design was to be determined, especially in terms of integration with road, bike facilities, that AASHTO standards, really want trails to be integrated instead of separated. So I haven't seen, I haven't heard that sort of thing yet. At any of the more recent meetings, and I haven't, that there's no final design or suggested final design put forth, and then getting a community input meeting. Jason Berry, who was a former planner in Blue Island, had talked about having a bike group before he left to kind of look at that, but nothing's happened since then. So I'm just kind of curious as to, you know, like there was no final input or public meeting about the trail construction, the spur from Chatham Bridge east to Old Western, or west to Old Western. And, you know, just turning of basic design elements that people who are experienced bicyclists and former bike professionals, interested citizens can have some input into.
That was all looked at. Now, the alignment hasn't really changed in the last several years. It's basically been sitting at IDOT for 2 years. And I think the meeting that you were talking about was at the western segment. That was probably the last public meeting.
That's a different project. I don't think we had.
Oh, no, not the
Oh,
old western. Yeah, that's not officially part of our Cal-Sag Trail project.
Right, I know, I
The last
understand
public
that.
meeting we had was, I think, in May of 2017. It was here in Rhode Island.
Yeah, but the final, like, design wasn't sure about, I mean, now that it empties onto a sidewalk, which is kind of a very questionable alignment.
That trail you're talking about is outside the scope of the Cal-Sag Trail.
Well, no,
That's
but it's a
different meeting
spur
than we
that's
thought.
connecting into, and that was part of the, you know, the purpose of having some community input, because the trail should be like an artery that branches off. I mean, part of the, you know, Steve Bottel talked at one of the public meetings about being a transportation access instead of an isolated corridor. So that's just the kind of thing I'm wondering about is when the final design comes, because as far as I know, last time I talked to Jason Berry about the alignment on, say, Vermont Street, they weren't sure if it's going to be bike lane or just symbols saying bike direction, or whether it was a separated bike lane or was going to be incorporated on the road.
That's been done
We've
years and years
been
ago.
coordinating with IDOT on that too. So there's going to be buffered bike lanes primarily on Vermont Street that will have, you know, paint separation between the travel lanes, and that's the highest level of protection we can get through IDOT since they have jurisdiction over the road. But that coordination has gone on with IDOT. That was presented, I think, back at the last public meeting too.
Okay, because there was still some question about whether that was as of like last year. So, I mean, that's kind of news to me, and I don't know if anyone else had heard about a final design for that. I mean, that's all I'm asking is that, I talked about, there were a lot of things talked about is, you know, these are potential designs or recommended designs, but the actual implementation hasn't taken place. Especially even the exact route along between Chatham Bridge and Ashland.
Well, if you want,
That's been the same.
that has not changed in 10 years.
Well, I actually helped run an organic farm on some of that land, and the original design shows it going through our farm.
No, it goes around it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The design I've seen as of like 2 or 3 years ago has it going right through. So those are the kinds of things, that it would be nice to have a public forum to show these things, and just so we could see, like what.
Yeah. If just in the interest of moving things along, if you want to talk to us afterwards, that'd be great. We can fill you in on exactly where we're at.
Well, I'm just curious if other people who are bicyclists or interested people have seen like these final designs and have had some input in them. I don't know if that's. I mean, I understand there's been a long process, but I've never heard like final design on certain things, because I've heard that there's still fluidity with that, some of that stuff, especially with Blue Island section. But that's what I was told by Blue Island people.
It's final. And it's been final for several years. Yeah, please.
This might be a question for the Forest Reserve District. The new segment from Ashland to Halstead, if you're on the west of the bridge over the Little Calumet, there doesn't seem to be any maintenance going on. The trail, the brushes are really growing up high. But if you go on the other side of the bridge, somebody along there is cutting the brush. I just wonder if you have any comment on that.
So let me just make sure I understand. You're, is this is the bridge,
Right,
and you're saying this side of the bridge is where the issue is?
right, yeah.
Right, so this is the land that NWRD owns, that's leased by Blue Island.
Okay.
And so it's, just opened a month ago, so I'm expecting, is Mark Miller still there? Okay, well, I expect that the village of Blue Island is still kind of getting used to adding this to their roster of
Okay.
maintenance responsibilities.
Because on the other side of the bridge,
Right.
granted, it's new turf there, and they.
Right, this is, right, so
Yeah,
this is,
but it appears somebody's been in there cutting back the brush.
right, the Forest Preserve maintenance crews do a great job of cutting the shoulders on the trail, so.
Okay.
Yeah, our part of the trail ends at the bridge. so-
Okay.
So this is actually the city of Blue Island, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's probably gonna take them a little while to kind of get used to adding a new thing to the mowing roster.
Okay, thank you.
I'm up.
Right, okay, so Debbie, so our last, so if there's no more questions of the consultants, I'd like to just give the friends of the. So it all started and hopefully will end in a big celebration with Debbie here at the podium.
Yeah.
So.
2020, huh? Okay. We'll start planning now. All right, I want to thank you guys all for the updates. We get questions constantly. What's going on? What are they doing? When's the next paving? When's it going to be done? It's such a popular destination for people, bicyclists, runners, walkers, people with their kids. I see people out there of all ages, sizes, abilities. It's so popular, people want more, so it's very exciting to hear that things are moving along. It'll be great for us to have some new fodder for conversations. So we're very excited. Thank you all for putting this together and giving us updates. We really appreciate it. So I'm Debbie Stafford. I'm currently president of the Friends of the Cal-Sag Trail. And we have some of our members here tonight. You want to stand up, wave your hand or whatever? Okay. We take the summer off for our meetings. So our first meeting back is actually tomorrow night at 7 o'clock in Palos Heights at the Rec Center. And they're open to one and all. So if you don't have enough of the Cal-Sag Trail tonight, you're welcome to come tomorrow night and hear some more. As the trail progresses towards completion, the Friends of the Cal-Sag Trail have turned our focus on what does the trail need to enhance the experience of trail users. So we're working with Ozinga and our coalition partners to get benches installed that will be sponsored by individuals or groups. We've also discussed water refilling stations, emergency bike repair stations, restroom facilities with similar sponsorship opportunities. Interpretive signage and art sculptures like Major Trailer has done with the bridge should also be part of the experience. And how do we open up the amazing vistas of water and bridges in key locations in the summer and fall when the foliage and invasive species block the fantastic views along the trail? So certain locations you can get really beautiful views of the bridges and the water in the winter and the spring, but come summer it fills in and you can't see what the barge is going by or the boats. It would be nice in certain locations to have that. We're looking at that. We continue to do fundraising to help move us towards these projects. We just recently had our annual Graveyard Blues Tour, which began and ended here in Blue Island. We've been discussing fundraising ideas, such as a golf outing, but none of us have ever run one. Beer and brats on the bridge, which we all know a lot about. Or my personal favorite, a barge dinner cruise on the Cal-Sag. I'm convinced that the barge cruise idea will be as successful as the Cal-Sag plunge if we just can figure out a way to make it happen. So if there's anyone in the audience that has any connections or ideas on how we can do this, or any other ideas on fundraising, please contact me or one of our Friends members. Or if you have a unique fundraising idea and you think that would not only be successful but fun, let us know. So as you can see, we have a lot going on. We meet the fourth Tuesday of every month, September through June. We move our meetings between Palos Heights, Alsop, and Blue Island. Locations, dates, and times are on the website, calsagtrail.org. Any questions for me? Yay. Thank you.
Kevin or Sarah, do you want to say anything from the Blue Island Chamber? So we started out, I just want to thank the Blue Island Chamber again for hosting us tonight, and we really appreciate them helping us put this together. And you know, the calcitetrail.org website is a great place to get updates. We're going to be trying to, you know, we have our own website, but this is unique to this trail, and we'll be, you know, posting more updated information on that from the Forest Preserve side as well. But there's no thank you to our whoever supplied our coffee and cookies, and Kevin. All right. Well, thank you again for coming out. And we appreciate it.
Thank you.